So for problem number 35, they want us to complete the square of f of x. But before I can complete the square of f of x, what I need to do is I need to rewrite it as ax squared plus bx plus c. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say f of x is equal to negative x squared minus 16x plus 10. Now the reason I do that is that lets me know that a is equal to negative 1, b is equal to negative 16. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, I know what I'm doing. And then c is equal to 10. Now normally when you complete the square for factoring, we set it equal to 0 and then you move it over to the other side. We still pretty much do the same thing. Oh, let me tell you why we're completing the square. It's because we want to make this look like this. We want to write this in the vertex form, which is a times quantity x minus h squared plus k. And the reason we want to do that is because the vertex occurs at h comma k. So that's the vertex. All right. So if I rewrite it this way, I can get the vertex. Now rewriting it that way is pretty easy. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take and subtract 10 from both sides, which gives me f of x minus 10 is equal to negative x squared minus 16x. At this point, so I'm just taking this and subtracting 10 from both sides. At this point, what I'm going to do is multiply everything by a negative 1 because I really want this x squared. When you complete the square, you want a positive 1 in front of that x squared. So if I take this whole thing and multiply it by a negative 1, this becomes negative x of, f of x. This becomes positive 10. This becomes a positive x squared, and this becomes a positive 16. Whoops. Positive 16x. Okay, does that make sense to you guys? I'm taking this whole thing and I'm multiplying it by negative 1. So I'm going to take this whole thing and I'm going to multiply by negative 1. It goes times that, times that, times that, times every term. Yeah, I just want a positive x squared. We're only doing that because I really want this to be positive x squared. Because that's the only way completing the square works. You have to have x squared plus something of x. Now the next step for completing the square is that I need to add to both sides b over 2 squared. And we said b was negative 16, but now when I rewrite it, it becomes a positive 16. And does that make sense? Because I multiplied by a negative 1, and this needs to be squared. And remember, whatever I do on one side, I got to do on the other. So that means what I'm going to have to write is 16 divided by 2 is 8. 8 squared is 64. Minus f of x plus 10 is equal to x squared plus 16x plus 64. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So now I'm going to start combining like terms. When I do this, I'm going to get negative f of x is plus 74 is equal to this. Now this is a perfect square, which is x plus 8 squared. Quantity squared. If I multiply this out, guess what I'll get? This right here. That's what completing the square does for us. Now remember, we're doing all this work because I want it to look like this term right here. Does that make sense? I want it to look like this right here. Whoops, that's a little confusing. So the only thing I have left to do is move the 74 over, maybe multiply it by negative 1. So I'm going to subtract 74 from both sides. These cancel, and I get negative f of x is equal to the quantity x minus, or plus 8 squared minus 74. And if I multiply everything by a negative 1, this becomes negative, and this becomes positive, and then this becomes negative. Or I mean positive. The negative of a negative is positive. So this is the final answer. Now it says compare it to the graph and see if you're right. Well, first of all, what does that mean? That means that h comma k, which is the vertex, is going to occur at negative 8 comma 74. This negative 1 in front means that the parabola is going to open down. So if I were to graph this, what I know for a fact is that if I graph it at negative 874 this point right here, negative 8, comma 74, I'm going to have a parabola that kind of goes down like that. Does that make sense? Let's fire up the calculator and see if we're right. So now the original function was, whoops. The original function was, somebody read it to me.
Negative x
equals
squared.
10 minus 16x
What was it originally? 10?
10 minus 16x minus x squared.
Minus x squared. Alright, now I'm going to change the zoom. I'm going to do the window because I know that my x value has to be at least negative 10, and I'm going to do, 10's fine. But my y value is it's going to be crazy. It's got to go from like 0 to 80. Does that make sense? And you know why I said that? Because I know that based on this information that somewhere over here is negative 8, comma 74. Right? Let's not forget that this is my x value, this is my y value. So I've got to have that in the window somewhere. Okay? So, since I do have that in the window, let's graph it and see. Actually, technically, I think the x max could just be 0. Alright, let's graph it. So I really zoomed in on it, okay? But we want to find the max, so what I could do, remember the vertex is the maximum or the minimum. If I hit second trace, I can calculate the maximum. And I just got to move the cursor. See how this says left bound right here? I got to move the cursor to a little bit of the left of the peak of the hill. See, right there is about the peak, but I want to go a little bit to the left of that. Hit enter. Then I want to go a little bit to the right of that. And hit enter. Then I want to go right smack dab in the middle. And then hit enter. And the maximum occurs at negative 8, positive 74. And from the graph, you can see that it opens down. Right? Any questions? Okay, good.